properties that in years they sell for less. It's happening. It happened, and we're going to talk about it now. How to make sure you're not buying that property. Stay tuned.
Good morning.
Oh, Billy, how are you?
I'm the confused real estate agent this morning. I just don't know how this has happened in Sydney.
How does that happen in Sydney? Now, listen, just before we get into how you can lose money in real estate, I just can't believe this topic, but it's true. We're going to show you some suburbs. But I just want to talk about you getting old. This morning I asked you about what colour you were going to go when you get old. And I just said you're going to be like white hair, all white. Probably not bald, but white. And you said something even cooler. I thought it was pretty cool. Can you tell us what you said?
I said I don't really care what colour the hair goes. I'm more excited for that stage of my life when I can transition from a Billy to a Bill. And this is going to happen pretty quickly. I'll have grey hair if property values don't go up in 10 years. So I don't want to be a part of this.
So you're genuinely excited about getting old?
Yeah, I'm really excited to retire. It's not going to happen for a little while, but...
You really are Billy the old man in a young man's body. What happened to you? What did your parents do to you?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I'll tell you what how this is similar to property. I love the way they frame this up. They called this a 10-year price freeze. And maybe I'm frozen in time as well. A 10-year price freeze. It's not like...
It's interesting. You know, you don't want to be this person, Billy. You don't want to be the person paying a 6% interest rate for 10 years on an investment property in particular and be in the same position you were 10 years later. What suburbs did this to these people, Billy?
Should we just show and tell? It's a little bit small. I'm sorry I couldn't make this any bigger.
We're trying to work this out before we come on screen, but you can always read them out after you pop them up, whilst you pop them up.
Yeah, I'll read them out for you. There's also the link there for the full article if you want to go have a look. But this is coming straight from PropTrack, so good source. And there are the suburbs right there for you.
Yeah.
So from the top,
my eyes are burning.
These are the suburbs where prices have fallen or frozen since 2014. Frozen in time, not gone anywhere. The ones in red are the ones, unfortunately, in a negative. And then the ones underneath that are the ones that have done minimal sort of growth. Majority of these areas are sitting, sort of back to back near each other. But at the top of the list, Box Hill houses. Median price in 2014 was 2.25. Median house price in 2024 is 1.24. Like, that's down 44%. Over $1 million. How is that happened? Like, underneath that,
okay, can you blast through those suburbs?
A negative change.
I've got a strong opinion on this.
37%. That's on average 500,000.
Yeah, I got it. Just give me the suburbs.
But the one that surprised me most, I think one that we all know, Sydney Olympic Park. Apartments. Median price in 2014, $700,000. Median price in 2024, $685,000. That's a change of just over 2%, 15,000 in the red.
Yeah, so it's just a world of pain. What other suburbs? Don't worry about the percentages. Just blast them out. We've only got a couple more minutes, Billy.
Rose Hill units, Mount Colah, Punch Bowl, Mortlake, Ramsgate, North Rocks, North Ryde, North Ryde, Harris Park, West Ryde, Peakhurst, and then the greater sort of Sydney inside. Interesting.
Now, when I hear those suburbs, Billy Bob, old manny, young man's body, what do you think of? You've got, what are your thoughts? You've got a lovely quote, but what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that, generally speaking, these suburbs have had strong development.
Nuclear reactors next door to them.
Strong development. And I'll give you my little one line because I don't know how to say it any better. Supply is the enemy of capital growth. I'll say it one more time. Supply is the enemy of capital growth. And I really don't know how to put it any better than that.
God, I can't believe you're such a harsh young man. There's two values to a property. One, on the back of, I completely support, and I think that's the number one, Bill. For anyone out there, that is the number one why these suburbs listed have not performed at all. Actually, they have not only not performed, but they've gone negative. So number one is exactly what you just said. And number two, and I love this saying, property has two values. One is the land, one is the structure. They're the two values. One value goes up all the time, no matter what. The other value goes down all the time, no matter what. So, allow me to give everyone an example, guys. If you have a house and it's a spec home, you built it with Metricon, and you spend $1 million, 500,000 on building a house, and you bought the block of land, your land value most likely will be worth double, and your unit and your house value will most likely be worth half about 20 years later. So one value is appreciating, the other is depreciating. So please remember, a lot of these suburbs that Billy's read out, new properties were developed, and the land value went up and the property value went down. But when you underpin what you just said, Billy, about the supply, these suburbs had a stupendous amount of supply hitting the marketplace. So the land value froze or went down, and the actual structure value went down.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah,
how does one get around that? When they're a first-time buyer, how do you get around? How do you avoid your property value going down? That's the question on everyone's lips.
Yeah, spot on. They quoted it to say, ultimately prices rise because there's too much demand and not enough supply. So when it's the opposite, it simply just moderates prices. That's what you see in that table.
Okay. I'll give you a working example. DY Northern Beaches, there are 9,600 units in the suburb. A lot of units. Fast fact, there's more sales in DY postcode than there is in the Sydney City CBD postcode of 2000. We do more sales every year, always have, last 5-10 years. But here's the kicker. DY was 8,600 units for almost 50 years. The supply didn't change. When it did change, the supply changed by about 10% over overall 60-year period, or specifically a 10-year period, it changed by 10%. You have areas like Ryde, or in particular, you have areas like Rosebery. So we changed by 10%, 1/10. Places like Botany, Rosebery, Alexandria, and around there, the whole catchment had 2,000 units. 5 years later, it had 4,000 units. 3 years later, it had 8,000 units. 5 years later, it had 16,000 units. So it multiplied by a factor of 8, 10, 12 in some of these suburbs, and that puts an enormous amount of downward pressure on the pricing. That is those suburbs that you can see here.
I've got a question like Luke's. Great question. Do you buy in these areas now due to the price drops? Is there some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Is there some kind of a level at which you go, that's a great buy?
Sure. It's how does look to answer your Luke. Thank you very much for your question. To answer your question, I think you've got to look at how this happened, how it happened, and what actually happened in these areas is there was a strong necessity. There was planning controls or zoning changes made, and the allowance allowed these units to be built at surplus. If you're at the true end of that allowance, maybe you got a heart rate. If you're halfway through the developing of what's been developed in these suburbs, I still don't think you have a fat chance.
There you go. Really interesting. So, all in all,
On the back of that, Billy, on the back of that, I think if you're looking in Sydney's one of the toughest on planning controls, obviously not in those suburbs, but on the back of that, Queensland, think about it. Melbourne, think about it. A lot of those guys have loosened their belt up on planning controls, and it puts pressure like this.
yeah, it's good. It's just a good thing to factor in with whatever you do, wherever you go. Not a good club to be a part of.
Nah. And if you're a first home buyer buying in these places 10 years later, it's worth less. Hard life. Hard life. Look at the historics of these suburbs. Follow the historics. If you can't see a building track record in these suburbs for 50 years or 30 years, be worried. Be worried. Because these guys, I would dare to say, if you clawed back 20, 30, 40 years, RP data, for example, would do that and show you the performance of these suburbs. I think you'd see zero performance. They'd be relatively new emerging suburbs, or a lot of planning controls have been released within those suburbs.
I feel like we've really given these suburbs a hard time this morning. Can we finish on a good note?
They're good suburbs. It's just the planning controls. Like I would live like any of those suburbs I'd happily live in, but it's the planning controls that loosened up. Train stations. It was just logic to nail those areas, like the Olympics 2000 Olympic Park. Like that was just a nothing nutter, big bank of land doing nothing with excellent transport. So what a great place to live.
Great place to live. Tricky investment. That's where you got to weigh up where you put your money, I guess. Well said. Not that they're not livable. Great spot to live.
Yeah, and Bill, I've bought in these suburbs where I know that the performance was less than other areas that I know would perform better.
Yep.
But I bought for family reasons or lifestyle reasons. So sometimes it actually just doesn't stack, and you just know that you're walking into a sandstorm with capital growth. But it works for you, and it's not a capital growth play as much. It's lifestyle or whatever it may be, close to family, whatever.
So much supply and people paying massive prices. Can't believe Marsden Park isn't in there. Maybe it doesn't have data from 10 years ago. There is a few more as well. If we go back to that link, we could only fit so many on that screenshot. But there is a few more. There you go. That's a good way to summarize it. Leaving on a good note. Happy Tuesday.
Right, two quotes. Yours? Go.
Supply is the enemy of capital growth.
And mine is, there's two values. One is the land, which is an appreciating value, and one is the actual structure, which is a depreciating value. There's two values to a property.
Boom.